Hello and welcome to another episode of our Finance and Society podcast. As you already know, our mission with this podcast is to tackle the pressing financial issues affecting our lives, both personally and as a society. It's on this podcast that you hear from a diverse range of experts, including prominent figures in financial services, key policymakers, experienced academics, and insightful researchers. Plus, we also feature individuals whose personal journeys offer invaluable financial lessons. So do join us today and always as we shine a light on challenges and discover practical solutions that can genuinely enhance financial well-being for everyone. My name is Charles Afriye, and I'm your host for today's recording. And we are very privileged to have on the talk today, Sonny Kermi, who, as you can see, is smiling and ready to talk to us. So I'll hand over to Sonny to introduce himself.
Yeah, no, thank you ever so much, Charles. So, yes, I am Sonny. I am a chartered financial advisor, chartered associate with the LIBF, and I have a company that I run called SK Wealth Solutions in the East Anglia.
Good. Well, what Sonny did not tell you is something that is very important for today. Sonny has just completed our MBA in financial planning, which is our bespoke postgraduate offer for our chartered colleagues in the professions. If you haven't heard about it, I believe it's unique. It's the only course of its type available to financial services professionals currently in the UK. So if you were chartered or a fellow, you can jump onto our MBA in financial planning or our MSc in finance, and then you learn. You learn new skills, new knowledge, new ways of doing things, and probably that's why Sonny is with us today, because you did a very exciting study, a very kind of unique dissertation for your MBA. And it was exciting from the outside, from the look of it. And that's why we've invited you to spend some time with us today as you tell us a bit more about what you studied, or shall I say, what you researched on, what you found, and what some of the implications of that are for practice. So thank you, Sonny, for taking time out to talk to us.
Thank you for the opportunity, Charles.
Good. So I can't wait. Let's just dive in. And I'll take you from the very top. I looked at your dissertation project, and I sense that the main aim, the overriding objective of your study was to discover what impact colors have on consumer understanding when they were being presented with cash flow models. Tell us a bit more about that. I mean, why this topic?
Yeah, no, great question. Why? That's a brilliant question. So let me go back a step. Let me go back a step. So I within my job, when I sit down with individuals and couples and business owners or whatever it may be, I always like to understand the people's why, their objectives in life, their goals in life, and then we work out where they are today. I've understood where they want to be, and then how do we bridge that gap? So we make a meaningful difference, so much able to add value to that individual, So I always look at, their goals. And a cash flow model in the most simplest format is to show an individual, so they can visualize everything they've said verbally on a screen that will then ultimately all their goals that they wanted to achieve. One, are they going to be able to achieve those? Okay. If so, how? Understand if they're not able to achieve that, what needs to be done. And it's all fair and well, mention it from my perspective, I verbally or in a written communication method. But when showing it visually, I have found in my experience that people have understood the journey a little bit more clearer. It's a little bit more transparent, because financial advice, the financial services industry, it could be seen as, um, you know, a lot of jargon, a lot of terminologies used. But what value does that actually bring to the individual? And that's why I use cash flow models to kind of illustrate or reinforce what I've said verbally and in a written communication. So when I look at the colours and the reason why, I've chose to do a dissertation on, to discover what impact colours have on consumer understanding when presenting a cash flow model plan to a client. When we look at someone's savings, for example, or their expenditure, whether it be essential or discretionary, it's all illustrated on different colours. Now, colours and different colours ultimately have an impact of some sort. Now, when I started the dissertation, I wanted to understand, well, what impact would it have? For example, if we were look at a deficit, the colour used to show there's a shortfall or deficit in one's plan is red. So that's what kind of sparked, kind of like within myself, red. If we are showing a deficit or shortfall as the color red, if I changed it to a green, would it have the same impact? That's kind of where it originated from, for me just simply doing this on a daily basis.
No, I mean that's a lot that you've said there. So to my very simple mind, you've given us insights about what financial planning is all about. I'm just taking it back to the idea of goals-based financial planning. So you're trying to get your usually non-technical client to imagine what a future what future they would like to have, and your job is to help them create that future. And you were exploring the communication side of it. What you were saying effectively is you can play with numbers and written text, but to help communicate and to help them imagine the visual side is quite crucial. And then you latched on to the role of colors
Sure.
specifically in there. Okay, so you've given us the what. Can I just maybe prod you a bit more? But let's talk about the why. I mean, I know you kind of touched on it, but were there any particular observations or real world challenges? I mean, what really drew you to that topic? So because I'm going back to what happens at the research methods sessions that we have. When you come into the university, what we do as academics is we give you the theory, and then all too soon we say to you, you have to find a problem, don't we? If you cast your minds back to that conversation, and we're like, you need to articulate your research problem in a very simple sentence. and we encourage you to draw on your experience. We say, look at what happens in practice and be specific. So I want you to, if you may, recount that journey. How did you, of all the things you do, Sonny, of all the exciting things you do in practice as an advisor, why did you, were there any particular reasons why you went to cash flows and colors? Was it because of something you had seen in the software that you use, or any need? I mean, I'm just trying to pin you down a bit. I mean, just tell
Sure.
us, how did you go there? Whether you, it's like a needle in a haystack. You've just gone zoom to colors and cash flows. What was the thinking behind that?
Yeah. No, listen, another great question, Charles, I have to admit. So, to clarify the question, why did I pick the question or the topic that I actually chose? As I say, I use goals-based financial planning every single day of my life. Okay,
Oh,
I consider
okay,
that.
right. Hmm.
So that was something I was, kind of, I understood. And that's I've done. I've been kind of focusing on people's goals for many years. So it's something that I do within my business, and that's my structure. No two individuals are the same. So when it came to cash flow, I've been using cash flows, plans and modeling and software for around about 2.5 years now, and I religiously use this. Now, no matter what client I have in front of me, I always like to produce a plan. As I've alluded to earlier on, there's reasons why, especially one of them being the different communication method. Right, got it verbally, I say it. Written is I type and then give it to them, and then visually I show it to them. That's my approach, and that's what I like doing. And I think it's really well received. Why colours though, and why cash flow? So I know I do cash flows every day. So that was something that I'm fairly kind of clued up with, and I can say, I can navigate my way around, people's lives and different goals and whatnot. The colour element of it was, as I briefly alluded to earlier, there's different colours used in a cash flow plan. Okay. Now, one of the things that is common is the color of a deficit or a color of a shortfall, and it's the color red. Now, part of my job is ultimately, understanding individuals, understanding their tone of voice, but also the non kind of verbal communication, so the body language. And when I show, of course, deficits within a plan, because that's what they want, dream as big as you want. Um, and it kind of hits them in the sense that what I want, where I'm today, they're going to have to make some change, okay, or take some action, okay. And watching someone first, the first time they see a plan, their reaction, the non-verbal behavior or the body language, that's what made me think this is interesting, because when I've said this in the past verbally, or I've done it in a written format, I didn't get the same sort of response. Um, this ignited them. And that's what made me think, actually, I really want to kind of become an expert, if I can, of course, it's experts are a bit of a broad kind of term or word, but I want to become an expert of understanding, well, this is what I do every single day of my life. How can I become better? How can I understand, one, the software perspective, but also the effect it has on human beings? And that's why and how I got to doing what I did for my dissertation.
Oh, brilliant. No, that's brilliant. I like I like football. I have to say I can't play that much anymore for obvious reasons. But I know about colours, and I mean, you quite rightly, probably there's a universal thing, this a non-verbal, an accepted set of norms or behaviors around colors. So if you see red, you probably shouldn't sit still. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm going ahead of us, but maybe there are other colors that are also associated with other expectations. No, no. Thank you for clarifying that. So, just to just to kind of bring this part of the conversation to a close. I know you've already given us an example, but let's talk about maybe things that surprised you, right? So, yeah, I mean, as you've clearly articulated, your project explored the impact of colors on consumer understanding when they were looking at the cash flow model. Can you give us a concrete example of an impact that you uncovered that might not have been immediately obvious to an advisor or a client? I know you're speaking about the red bit and all that, but did you find anything that surprised you? I'm talking about surprises, or was it was everything as you expected?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not everything as expected, I have to admit. I mean, yeah, reading, doing a lot of reading actually, should I say. There were many different areas that I just didn't think about. Even if we just think about colours, um, we then look at the how, a female or male sees the same colour, the effect it has, depending on different journals, different academics, different researches that we've done in the past, how they, what impact it actually has. And walking into the, dissertation, I didn't really think that through. I didn't actually think about gender. Um, so, it's a small thing, but it's actually a big thing. It was a lot bigger when you actually take a step back and understand, actually, hold on, this task that I've, or the route I'm going down, or the avenue, or the research, or whatever we want to call it today, um, it's a lot bigger than I actually, one, originally anticipated, um, and two, what I actually originally thought what might be the answer, or what it may confirm or not confirm. So yeah, in regards to, there are many different areas that the research uncovered that wasn't obvious to me as an advisor, a practicing advisor. And I'd probably say, even from a client's perspective, I mean, there are other professionals out there that may understand how they interpret, either color, or the way they read something, or the way they understand something. That comes with like self-awareness and whatnot. But most people, I would say, um, would probably not know how one, potentially, they understand information, whether it be in a written format, verbally or visual, to then understand actually the decision that they're going to make, there's an effect. That's what I kind of found within my kind of research. And hopefully that makes sense.
Sorry, I was stuck in mute there. Yeah, it makes sense. I was just thinking, can you give us one example then? I mean, so I mean, when you were kind of considering the surprises, if you had a catalog of surprises, which of the surprising bits would you like to share? And maybe briefly why? I mean, what surprised you the most about the things you uncovered?
Mm, yeah. One, that there's definitely not one like a correct answer. Definitely that, which is quite fun, I have to admit. You've got people that believe that color does have an impact. People that don't believe it. There's people in the middle. But I think my biggest, and it was just great for my own knowledge, and and even because I really didn't think this through, was gender. It has to be gender. For me, it's understanding, how potentially a male or female presented with the same information may come to a different kind of decision conclusion just purely based on yeah their sex, so to speak.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. Let's go on then. As an academic, when I reviewed the work, I came across something that I wanted to touch on. You you mentioned how presenting complex information visually facilitates consumer understanding and decision making. Does it? I mean, was that what you really found, or what were your actual findings after you had done the data collection? Was it more nuanced? Was it more complex? Was it a clear case of presentation or presentation in a certain way clearly facilitates understanding and decision making?
Yeah, a hard question. It is a hard question. I have to admit. From so when I So the overarching question, of course, was how presenting complex information visually facilitated consumer understanding of decision making. Okay, one that question, the overarching, which ultimately helped me achieve my goal in my dissertation, was when we're looking at any individual, business owner, league professional, whatever it may be, they have different goals, and there's a lot going on, right? There's like different baskets doing different things at different times of someone's life, etc., etc., etc. So it can get really, really overwhelming when we look at financial planning. And my job is to try and keep it as simple as possible. When we're looking at cash flow models, depending on one's situation, um, they may have property, they may have investments, they might have pensions, they might have savings, they might have, gold and silver and cars and whatever. And before you know it, we're building up this picture of, from the raw data of an individual, and then we're presenting that in a plan that's got loads of different colours. So my aim was to see, well, actually, hold on. With the complex information being presented visually, does it help? One, for the understanding of where we're going, why we're going, and the effect it may have. But also, two, is when they are going to make a decision, does it help them make that decision, i.e., to take an action, so to speak? So that's me just breaking down the overarching question to my dissertation. When I did the practical, kind of element of my dissertation, and you asked the question, was it proven? Was there nuances? I would say, based on my dissertation and the process I kind of followed and conducted and the experiments, etc., I did not have enough information from the research I undertook or any evidence to prove that complex information presented in a visual format increases consumer understanding or decision making. I think from my research and the experiment that I conducted, I couldn't come to a definite answer that would say, I can prove X, Y, and Z. I would say it probably caused more questions than answers.
So brilliant. I mean, and listeners and viewers, please note that. I didn't know. It's exciting seeing how you've presented there, because I mean, you would think that sometimes people will expect that if you set out to find something, you find it. So you say, I'm going to prove this, and then you go and you find all the data and you try to prove it. But on this occasion, because of the rigor and the processes that you went through, you're saying the findings were inconclusive. But maybe we can dig around that a bit. Was that surprising to you? I mean, from where I'm sitting, it's probably not surprising. But what did you think? Why do you think that was the situation? What did you make of your finding there?
Yeah. Okay. It was. I have to admit, I originally thought, based on feedback that I've been given from individuals and clients and whatnot, is it's helped them understand that bigger picture, because that's one of the reasons why I did the MBA and even this subject. However, when I did the the actual dissertation, um, I didn't actually get the answers that I thought I was going to get. Um, and then when I look back on reflection, now of course it's been months ago since I submitted the dissertation. I sit there because I'm still carrying on, doing my cash flow forecasting and the models and all the other stuff. I kind of sit there thinking, well, I know what I thought the answer would be in my dissertation. I know what the answers are, and they're very different. So I had to change. I had to develop myself in the sense that actually this is just another way of portraying some information, and it might simply be that what could help, i.e., increase the consumer understanding or even decision making, is the verbal communication around that cash flow model being presented, i.e.,
Mm,
am I asking the right questions? Are the questions landing well? It's kind of epic around the actual visualization of it. It's me and how I guide the individual in regards to what's on the screen, how does it kind of play a part into their life, and how each decision will have an impact. So I think, to answer your question, on my experiment, I focused purely on visual content being shown and complex data to try to understand if it increases consumer understanding decision making. But in reality, it's a part of the visualization, but also me being there and guiding them and holding their hand. That's what the dissertation was missing. The verbal element of it all. It's a combination.
mm. So interesting. Interesting that you put it that way. So in it's not a flaw as such in the research, but it shows the significance of the the whole. Because what what you might be tempted to do is when you try to take things out of context and say colors and visuals on their own, but they come in a package. It's
Yes.
the scale of the advisor, it's the interaction that goes on. So the cash flow model is not a silver bullet. You can't just maybe sit behind your system and design the best plan with the most colorful visuals, send it up to Joe Blokes and expect that he would make sense out of all of that.
Spot on.
Okay, right. So it's a lot more complex.
Yes.
Uh, but that doesn't mean, coming back to our conversation about colors and visuals, that doesn't mean you did not find anything. Let's move on then. So again, for this part of our conversation, did you uncover any links at all? Any links at all? Did you find any links between any specific colors and emotions, perceptions, and behaviors? Were there any prominent associations or causation links that you found? about any specific colors? And if you did, which colors were which colors were they, and what emotions or perceptions did they relate to? Maybe I have to
Yeah.
ask that question again. It was a long-winded question. I thought I thought it would be a simpler question, but it became very complex. Did you find any causal links between any specific colors and any emotions and behaviors? And if you did, what were they? If you didn't find any, were you surprised?
Yeah, sure. No, I think from the research, from the theory element of it all, when I was trying to understand all the different colours and the spectrums and etc., I found it quite interesting to see, okay, well, when I do the experiment, you know, is it going to play out as I have read, for
Hmm.
example? Okay. And I use red quite a lot. In this whole discussion, I've used red quite a lot, but I think it'll make sense why I'm going to use red again
Hmm.
rather than another kind of like a blue or a green or a yellow. Okay. But when we look at red, okay, and I mean, if you go right back to beginning of this kind of session, you mentioned something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing here, is if you saw red, you wouldn't stand still. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, if we look at red, for example, okay, that could be deemed as danger, you know, or stop, or but on the flip side, red is the color of love.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you've got five ends of the spectrum, but one color. So when you ask the question, did I really uncover any links with certain colors and emotion, perspectives, and behavior? Naturally, pre doing the dissertation, red is always deemed as, you know, danger, or you need to make a decision. There's a deficit, there's a shortfall, etc. Okay. Post doing the dissertation, I'm not saying things have changed in the sense that people's emotion, but in my mind,
Okay.
when I see a red in a portfolio, it doesn't necessarily mean danger. It doesn't necessarily mean that's the kind of end of the world at that point. It just shows and highlights more than any other color that there's some attention that you need to kind of focus on. There's an area that you
Hmm.
need to focus on, and then depending where the red is in someone's cycle in their lifetime, you might want just to focus on that one area, and brings the attention to the client, to then make a change.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that was
Wow.
the most kind of that was the one in terms of, you know, an actual color that has a link to someone's emotion, behavior, or perception. So it's bringing them into a certain element of their cycle to then take an action or focus on. That's what I found.
Okay. Wow. So I'm really learning a lot. Let me try and paraphrase. So you came to this color conversation from your practical experience and familiarity with goals-based financial planning. You
Mhm.
do it for a living, but it is out of the mundane that we have depth of understanding. So you sat in your research methods session and thought, hey, what can I do? Let's talk about colors because it's part of that mix of things that we use to communicate. That will be there almost every day because it's something that I see when I'm interacting with my clients. But then you had probably, as we all do, you had your own preconceptions. You'll be like, okay, maybe I can find that. You go you read a lot. What you found is probably not what you have found when you did the actual research. But that doesn't mean you haven't learned. You
Mm,
realize that this is a lot more complex because people come in different shapes and sizes, as they say, and we are at different stages. And you just touch on the idea of cycle.
yeah.
And what you're saying is, uh, ordinarily, if we were going to take red for stop or danger, it's probably saying, no, pause and reflect and let's do something. And depending on who it is you're talking to and at what stage they are at, different colors could be used to achieve different ends. No, brilliant. That is a lot more insightful. So let's step out of that bit. Let's talk about what you actually did. I know you told us about you read and you did some experiments. So if you don't mind paraphrasing, what did the research really entail? What did you really do?
Sure. Okay, yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet.
Yeah, please don't tell us too much because the methodology can be a bit complex, we know.
Yeah, no, I'm probably going to use it in like 3 sections, section 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
So, in short, um, the first thing I did was I spoke to fellow financial advisors, okay, to explain, what is it that I'm going to do, why I'm going to do it, and get their feedback. Two, do like a trial run in regards to will this even work? It was like a sample size. Would this actually work, and what do they come back with? What questions and feedback do they come back with once I've done, the prototype, the testing. With any part of doing the methodology, um, there's always areas upon reflection that could be changed, and I would change if I was to do it again. But I'll come back to
Okay.
that a little bit later on.
Okay.
Once I've done the small sample size, I got a feel for actually, hold on, this could really work. I can go to a bigger audience, okay? And then when I've taken the learnings, like the types of questions, and the feedback that I got, I then adapted and changed, my experiment. Now, in short, my experiment was showing individuals 20 cash flow plans. Okay.
Mhm.
Part of the first part of that kind of experiment is simply showing each individual a cash flow plan for 10 seconds
Okay.
and get them to rate their understanding. I've never seen this before, between 0 to 100.
Hmm.
Then there's a pause. We then go over the plans again, but this time I give them 20 seconds and I ask them rate between 0 and 10 different variables that could affect their understanding. The
Okay.
variables were color, line, scale, dimension. Okay, complexity. So color, line, scale, complexity. Okay, and they would rate it. Once they've done all that, fine. I've got the data now. I then ask them questions. So, like, short interview questions.
Okay. Right.
So that's
Right.
how I got the information. So section 1, sample size, other fellow financial advisors. Section 2 was to then actually go and have, I think I had 17 participants. And then the third section would be the interview questions, so to speak, just to really understand why they've rated or why they've chosen to rate a variable in that manner. What is it? How do they understand the question and interpret that to then answer?
No, no, thank you. So again, I tried to paraphrase. So you had your research question, but in between writing a research question and actually doing this all backwards and forwards, you did a lot of reading, I can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
You read around your problem, and then you design an experiment. So the main thing that you did in trying to contribute to knowledge and understanding beyond the reading, and you said there was a lot of reading, and I'm sure there would have been, you designed this experiment with 17 people, kind of, shall I say, inspired by your reading. You designed that experiment, you found the right questions, you did a trial first, improved it, and then went and spoke to the 70 people, and then you had a follow-up kind of a dialogue or interview or conversation. Now, I mean, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but did you enjoy doing that? It's not a trick question.
Yeah.
How did you find it?
Did I? Do you know what? When I was doing it, I was nervous. Okay, because I didn't know, one, do I have the skill set, the ability to kind of pull it off? Will it work? So when I did it to the sample size, from obviously doing all my theory, reading, a tremendous amount to then create questions, you have self doubt. And when I actually did it, to the sample group of the fellow financial advisors, that gave me confidence. Actually, do you know what? They understand what I'm doing and they understand the why. Now,
Mm,
bear in mind that they are in the industry, so I kind of did expect them to have an understanding of some sort as to what is it I'm trying to achieve
mm,
within a dissertation. I then obviously went to the 17 people after I made some tweaks and I delivered it. And even after, the interview, so to speak, and I asked, how did you find that? They were quite um, kind of brought into what I was doing.
mm.
They were quite kind of enthusiastic. They were positive, and that kind of gave me that kind of that thrill actually from having self doubt, not too sure if this is even going to make sense, to then pulling it off, then getting the raw data to then analyze it, and looking back today especially. Um, because it's been a month or so since the official results came out. Um, I would do it again. I would do it again. If you ask me the same question whilst I was doing it, I'll probably say never. But no, I
Mm.
would do it again, and I did enjoy it. And I have to admit, I'm fairly proud. I was able to do that after stop studying for, I haven't studied since 2020. So yeah, it would have been about 4 years of not studying, so to speak. And this was obviously now a mastered, which is, quite intense.
Oh, brilliant. Good to know. I mean, I'm not going to talk to anybody about that, but uh, don't be surprised if somebody else gets in touch about what next. Well, okay. Now let's begin to talk about the implications because, like I alluded to at the start, the reason why we have these conversations is that we think about impact. We think about contributing towards uh, knowledge and practice. I mean, who can benefit from what you have uncovered. So, given your findings and where you're sat now, how should advisors approach the use of cash flow models
Mm,
in the advice process? What would you say if you had to give any kind of advice to advisors?
yeah, advice to advisors. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get it. I would probably say, look, it's easy. I would say when using software like cash flow modeling or goals-based financial planning, to just say that you do it.
Hmm,
Okay. I think it's fair to say, people do it, and then may you look at it as a tick box exercise or another way to add value, maybe. But I think it's a combination of one, your understanding, two, how you can adapt to different individuals, three, how you can guide individuals in regards to one, the questions you're asking, two, the answers that are then given, and then three, how that actually even makes sense when you do it in a cash flow forecast. Um, so, I mean, that's a long-winded answer, realistically. But if I was to kind of shorten the answer to your question, given my findings, how should advisors, approach cash flow models in the advice process? I would say really understanding what that software actually does,
hmm,
what it portrays, and make
okay.
sure you're holding, the individual's hands and asking them the right questions and making sure that the information that's been presented has some sort of verbal communication, because everyone's understanding is very different. Yeah.
So it comes down to that personalizing, making it meaningful to that person.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's not really simply about efficiency. It's not about doing something quickly.
No?
It if anything at all, it should deepen the conversation, uh, so that you both have a shared understanding before you begin to develop those plans. Okay,
Yeah.
right. No, that's useful. Uh, how about the people who create these software, the models? What do you think your study has any implications for software developers? Anything you think they can improve in the existing systems?
Yeah.
Of course, please try not to mention any specifics.
Of
No,
course.
no mention any specific software providers. There were a few that were coming to the tip of my tongue that I had to retract. But any general kind of suggestions to them?
Yeah. I mean, what would be, it'd be really interesting. For example, because obviously it's my dissertation, right, about colours. The depth of the colour. So when
Mm,
we put, to make that in a simple or simplified answer is, if we're using a colour blue,
mm,
rather than using like a deep, navy blue, so to speak, something a little bit more lighter, maybe something like a sky blue,
mm,
so not as harsh, no depth to that one color. And it's kind of like, it's quite not attractive, but the word I'm looking for here is it's like a lightened approach to when seeing these colors. I would say, I would also probably even say the way they're portrayed in terms of the strict kind of thickness and thinness of any sort of like line within the creation of the software. Not quite, quite solid. They're quite bold, and you can see them, and each line represents a year, and yeah. I would say, yeah, if there's any kind of feedback, I'd say to the software developers, it would make it, I think it would make it a bit user friendlier. I would have to admit, just a lighter, softer. That was the word. That was the word I was
mm,
looking for earlier. Softer colors, same colors, red, blue, yellow, whatever it may be, orange, but just a bit softer in
mm.
the palette. I would say, yeah, that I think that might just help. Might, my opinion, it might help with the way it is portrayed to a client or an individual.
Okay. And I mean, there's one word that we haven't touched at all. We haven't touched on at all. That keeps trying to pop up in my mind. And I'm not putting you on the spot, but I think we, in doing all of this and in having this conversation, we are probably only focusing on those who are able to see,
Mm,
uh,
yes.
and probably that means we are not talking about those who are not able to see or who are hard to see.
Yeah, very
And
good point.
and I know your study did not focus on that, and probably you will come back to that if and when I ask you about the future. But it keeps coming back to me that the clarity and the ability to see should not be assumed to be standard for everyone.
Yes.
Different people have different abilities to see. So the the, the the spectrum of colors there that's available, that these software developers imagine will be communicative to everyone, should be thought through carefully.
Yeah. Do you know what, Charles? Actually, it's a great. great kind of observation. We didn't touch upon that, but in my experiment,
Yeah.
I actually had an individual that's colorblind.
Okay.
So the data that I got from that one individual, sorry, should I say, was yeah, it did take me back because I never asked the question in my experiment. It's
Hmm.
only from the follow up I realised because the individual goes, I'm colorblind.
Hmm.
So it was. I mean, I was very fortunate in a sense that I was able to have that in my mix of the
Okay.
people that attended the experiment or the survey, whatever word we use. But yeah, no, you're completely right. When we're looking at this dissertation or cash flows or colors, it is for people that can see,
Hmm.
and we're
Hmm.
assuming everyone can see.
Which is usually a very unhealthy assumption, isn't it? Because
Mm,
vulnerability in financial services, that's a big issue that the whole sector or profession, in fact, that the whole of society
yeah.
needs to rise up to. And it is not surprising that there will be many more conversations on this podcast series coming up about vulnerability and systems and processes and practices and inclusion broadly as we go forward. So I mean I'm looking at the general public now. What
Yes.
would you say uh, are the implications of your findings for consumers in general, people who
Mm.
use financial services? Do they Are they better off knowing something from your study?
Yeah, I mean, for the general public, um, again, it's such a big kind of question for me to answer because, you know, my thought process um comes back down to self-awareness. And that's
Okay.
another topic itself,
Okay.
for the public to be self-aware, to, the consumer, the potential client to be self-aware of themselves. And that might be, how they interpret data or, you know, how they read information. That is such a big topic. I mean, yeah, it's a very hard question for me to answer. The only thing I could say potentially is from the dissertation that I've kind of done and the topic that I chose is probably a literally a small kind of small piece of the pie or just scratching the surface um, in regards to when informational data is presented and it has the use of colors, how, based on a small sample size, people have taken um, the information and understood this. So the research paper, like I said, it's like very small in a big subject. Literally, probably doesn't even scratch the surfaces. But for the general public or the consumer, it does come down to purely, I would say, personally speaking, the self awareness. Um, yeah,
Mhm.
hopefully that answers your question.
No, that's fine. So I mean, it's a case of man know yourself, or as an
Mm,
individual know yourself. I mean, what really helps you? Are you a numbers person? Are you a narrative person? Would you like to rather hear than see? I mean,
yeah,
if you have the choice, uh, and if you were presented with colors, you may need to let go of some of your assumptions. Red
yeah,
doesn't always mean danger. Red could also mean the potential of something good happening. I mean,
mm,
to use less of a jargon. So, for example, if something was risky, it doesn't mean you have to avoid it because it could be the thing that takes you to the highest point, and
yes,
therefore we may have to represent it as red. So, what you're saying is the rand fixed or definitive kind of connotations to these things. It's quite personal. It depends on the context, and it's quite dangerous to take it out of context. So be aware of that. No,
Yes.
no, no. Thank you. So you'll be pleased to know that we are getting to the end of this conversation. Or maybe you'll be like, can we go on a bit more? But let me ask you, let me ask the last question. If you were to continue this research, if you had to think about goals-based financial planning, communication, interaction with clients, helping them to visualize their future so that they can communicate it to you, and then you craft a plan, you take it back to them, and you're trying to get them to understand and take ownership. If you have to come back to this conversation and this research, what do you suppose will be the next critical question that you would want someone or yourself to answer? Will it be about colors, or will it be about something else?
Yeah. Good question. I mean, as I said in a research paper, in a dissertation, if I was to do this again, or
Okay.
this is used, to kind of follow on to another study, but it's got some, this is like maybe a foundation of someone else's study. I would say I would probably, yeah, want to see, or I would do similar sort of question, so the
Okay.
impact of colours. But this time, I'd really make it a little bit more niche in a sense that on different genders, i.e., females and males. That's
Okay.
what I would want to know. Because I think, like I said, just touched upon it very briefly in my theory and my
Okay.
methodology. And I found some inclination that, do you know what, there could be a difference between both. Um, but I'd want to know more.
You
I'd want
want
to
to know
go down that spiral.
about genders and colors and understanding and perception and all that.
Yes.
Oh, brilliant. Well, I look forward to that research project then. So, yeah. No, thank you very much. I don't know. It's been lovely talking to you. I mean, I don't know if there were any final words that you would like to share, or if there's a pearl of wisdom that you want to throw out there. Did you read anything exciting? Was there any particular book? What would you recommend? I don't know. Any
Mm.
closing thoughts from you?
Okay, my closing thoughts was I would have to say, look, at the beginning, when I chose to go on to this course, I was nervous. I was out of my comfort zone. I felt, imposter syndrome. I'm not going to be able to complete this. I'm not going to be able to pass. And is the topic that I'm going to do relevant? Is it going to make a difference? Can it make a change? And you know what? Looking back, it was a journey, and it was a hard journey, I have to admit. But I got there. But I found out a lot more about myself, a
Hmm.
lot more, in terms of, internal and self-development to make me become, I believe, in my eyes, a better financial advisor, or even a better version of myself that's able to help clients, because kind of understood. I had a preconception of what the answer is going to be. It actually wasn't what I thought in terms of the dissertation. I went through a process. I went through the theory. I did the methodology. I did the experiment. I went through a process to get to the end, to come to a conclusion of actually what I went on to do, or the question I was going to answer, to the results I found, and then how I've grown through the months, and but it'll be about a year, wouldn't it? Yeah, over the last 12 months or whatnot, um, has enabled me to become better, which then naturally I can give that value to my clients. So in regards to things like books, etc., I mean, there were so many different books that I read, and I found it quite fascinating. And to try to, cast my memory back to, the authors and what I read. But I would have said, look, it was quite exciting. And I would probably say to kind of finish up is anyone that is thinking of doing an MBA or MSc in financial planning, just do it. When you get to the end, it is amazing because it's something that you've produced and it's authentic. And worst case scenario, you will learn about more about yourself, and it's your own self development that no one can ever take away from you.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I mean, that's very insightful. If I have to say my final words, I think what you have just taught me through this conversation is that research is not just about discovering knowledge out there, but it's as much a discovery of who you are. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to a subsequent conversation with you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Charles.